Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. The 32nd annual James River Shorts Film Festival Showcase is featuring 9 films, and it's coming this Friday the 16th to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. I'll have a link on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
He had all these questions and wanted to ask me what it was like and what we got right, what we got wrong. I hadn't seen the film yet, so I wasn't able to answer half the questions, but he was just very engaged and very enthused, and he is all the great things that people say about him for sure.
That was today's guest, Nick Kleczewski, talking about meeting Hugh Jackman at the premiere of Song Sung Blue, which stars him and Kate Hudson as Lightning and Thunder, a Milwaukee husband and wife singing duo who became popular with their Neil Diamond tribute act. Nick edited the original documentary with the same title that was released in 2008. He's a Richmonder who's also had a successful career working with Beyoncé and Tina Turner before creating numerous commercials for Audi and other brands. We'll be talking about his interesting career.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Copenhagen Test on Peacock. Simu Liu stars as an espionage analyst who discovers his own brain has been hacked. This means that an evil entity is relying on his senses to give them access to world-changing information. Is there any other kind in these shows? As expected for the genre, there's lots of sneaking around and confrontational discussions. What's missing is much real action. The show relies on the continually throbbing soundtrack to add tension that the direction or editing failed to include. Simu Liu maintains a poker face for much of the series, so his bland portrayal doesn't add much depth. There's the typical paranoia and expected double crossings, which all feels convoluted and disjointed. Also, it's very dark. Literally, even the offices of the government agencies are dim, and it's often hard to see the characters' faces. Other than the sci-fi concept, nothing about this series is especially interesting, remotely suspenseful, or even mildly exciting. I gave the Copenhagen Test 1 out of 5 stars. So, Nick, tell me, how long have you been in Richmond?
I'm from Hampton Roads originally. I was born in Newport News and lived in Gloucester, went to high school there and everything, and left for California to go to film school when I was still 17, graduated high school.
What school?
Academy of Art in San Francisco. It's like a small sort of independent college. After a bunch of projects, I was in a band that got signed to Sony, and we were making an album and stuff. For a bunch of reasons, it eventually made sense for me to come back to Virginia and just make that my home base. When I went to film school, all I knew is I loved going to see movies with my dad every weekend. Didn't have one iota of inkling of how they were made or anything. And then what film school did open me up to is, of course, how the sausage is made. And as soon as I was in my first editing class, it hit me like lightning. The power as an editor you have to tell the story. I don't know that there's any other single other role, obviously, than the original writer in a film than the editor to craft the story and make the decisions of what everyone's going to see. So I was hired out of that to do a bunch of extreme sports documentaries and music documentaries for bands and things like that.
Was that on the West Coast still?
But yeah, so out of film school, I was hired by Fox Racing. I was hired to make those documentary films. In those films, you use a lot of current music. So you're making deals with record labels. And through that process, we had met a lot of the bands, kind of the heavier space, hardcore and metal and whatnot, because that's the kind of music that's in those. And when the extreme sports stuff kind of died down, a lot of that world was asking us, well, hey, you want to come over and make our next in the studio documentary or a world tour movie or something like that. So between being a musician prior, that's what we started doing. So we were right on that era of labels still trying to sell CDs on end caps, putting DVDs with it of the making of the album or the world tour video or whatever. So
okay.
I and a few of my buddies that we went to film school with that I still work with to this day on everything started making that stuff, from bands like Slipknot in the heavy metal world to pop. I lived with Beyoncé for 2 years of my life, making a lot of her stuff, and Pink and Tina Turner, and did that for years and years. And that was starting to direct in the storytelling while editing my own stuff. So I was kind of getting in the mix of holistically thinking about projects. But when I was back in Richmond, I got connected with Dave Tronsell and Park.
Footnote.
Park is Park Group, which was the production and editorial company in Richmond for more than 25 years. In 2018, owners Dave Tronsell and Stacey Murphy merged with Ron Carey and his team, creating Tilt, a branded content company that includes production and post-production.
think through a job ad, maybe on Craigslist or something like that.
Oh, really? Wow.
I wasn't really looking for anything, but I went in and met him and liked what the company was about, and kind of was my first real like staff job as an editor. So I edited there for, I don't know, 6, 8 years. And through that process of meeting like local clients or well, just any clients that were coming through, I got these little opportunities from directors that got sick or just weren't available, or if I pitched a little something in the room, it became kind of an idea for their next spot or whatever. So like 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I kind of got to step up and direct whatever that was for whatever reason. The gap of me being exclusively an editor to exclusively a director just kept closing, and now that's pretty much where I'm at.
Now, I want to ask you a little more about Queen Bee and Tina and some of those things, and obviously, of course, Song Sung Blue. But you mentioned Park, and
surprise guest drop in.
Somebody just had to come in and say hello.
Can't escape this woman. I was just talking to her earlier today. We talk every single day.
Footnote.
Stacey Murphy is a founder and executive producer for Tilt. Ironically, Stacey, he was just talking about when he got hired at Park and starting to work there. And obviously, Stacey, you are still at Park/Tilt now. So what were your first impressions?
She has no memory of me starting at Park. But go ahead, Stacey,
Oh,
tell
really?
it.
Because I was going to ask her first impressions.
He came in a cheap suit, and I was like, who is this kid? He just brought in.
I think it was corduroy sports coat.
Ooh.
I do remember that. That was my first impression. It was when my office was on the first floor, and he walked in, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But I think one of the funniest things that happens to us all the time is Nick and I travel together constantly, and we have the worst luck of any two people that travel together, of anyone I know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a standing joke with the crew that like, wherever we are in the world, flying home, we are going to get screwed somehow. He always says it's Murphy's Law, but I really think it's Kleczewski Law, because every time I fly solo, it never happens.
I think it's the energy of the two coming together, because I do find too.
And we've traveled like all over the world together. And in 2017, we went to Africa to shoot for some nonprofits. And we get there and, it's like I don't know, however many hour flight, 20-hour flight or something. And we're like on no sleep. And our host has like very specifically told us everything to fill out on the visa, except what our professions were. And so Nick writes filmmaker and I write producer, and we're in Zimbabwe. And it's like the dictator is running it. And we don't think anything about it. And we like go on to our hotel and like get checked in at the lodge and like go out and start shooting stuff. And I came back to the hotel earlier than Nick did. And the hotel innkeeper comes in and she says, immigration came after you two today.
Oh.
And you're going to have to go down there. And I was like, what do you mean?
Turn yourself in.
Yeah, turn yourself in. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like very cautious. She's like, I don't know. And so anyway, we had to go to immigration once Nick got back. Everybody was having a heart attack, but it all ended up okay. We lied and said that we were just there on vacation. But the funniest is we went to the hotel bar that night, of course. And one of the locals was like, oh, you're the American criminals, huh? And Autumn was like, she is. And he said that when the immigration came, it was like 10 guys.
Wow.
We were really happy that we were not there when that happened.
Yeah.
You managed to get your footage and you got out of the country before you got, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I guess they're very concerned with what image gets out about what's going on in Zimbabwe.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
when Mugabe was still there. But they gave us this piece of paper we had to sign, and they said, whatever you do, don't lose this. Jump cut to Nick's hotel room is always a complete disaster. So the day before, he says, I don't know where that piece of paper is. Do you know where yours is? I was like, dude, I am leaving you. If you can't find that piece of paper, I don't care.
Well, now, as a producer, you should have taken it from him if you knew better.
Yeah, she was a good one. Jesus.
As soon as the wheels left the runway, I was like, oh, thank God.
Wow, that's crazy.
Stacey's my favorite person ever. I couldn't do anything I do without her. I give her crap all the time, but it's because I love her so much.
Oh, great. Well, Stacey, it's great to see you in person. It's been way too long. We got to get together and do lunch, but I want to thank you for dropping in.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Stace.
Bye.
Bye, she says. So let's get back to you. Before we go in to talk about Song Sung Blue, I did want to ask you, you said you spent some time with Beyonce and with Tina Turner. Were you just shooting kind of fly on the wall stuff, or did you actually get to direct and get involved with them, or were you just documenting more?
That was my era of doing like the in-studio docs or the world tour kind of movies or promos for albums. Tina Turner was her farewell tour, like making all the packets that go to the Entertainment Tonights of the world, where you're shooting the stuff while she's rehearsing and beaming it up over satellite, pretty old school.
Yep, some of that's on your website.
Yeah, some of those news packages and things like that. The Beyonce thing was a little different. We're jumping around, but Song Sung Blue had finished, won all its festival awards, and she had just so happened to be trying to make a documentary about herself. And for lack of not knowing where to look, her people looked at things like festival winners and stuff and found me just by total coincidence.
Wow.
Because of Song Sung Blue, helping her make what ultimately became a documentary that came out on HBO around that time. But I ended up falling into basically just doing everything in her world during her I Am Sasha Fierce double album, the black and
Right.
white stuff.
Right.
We kind of came up with that whole black and white motif together, which became Single Ladies and all those tunes at that time, which everyone remembers so well. And I did her world tour content. She had the biggest screen ever made on that tour. We created all kinds of custom content for it. Yeah, it was like 2 years of my life spent propping her up through that whole album cycle.
Do you ever hear from her or talk to her, communicate with her, or anything?
I was invited back, but I had done everything I wanted to do with that world. I'm sure most people think I'm crazy, but I was satisfied.
So we've mentioned it twice now. So Song Sung Blue, ironically, I saw the movie a couple of weeks ago, and then I've watched the documentary. So how did you get involved in the documentary?
Also, a little funny, I guess, just dating myself completely. Nearly every first gig as an editor I got that was a paid gig, I got via Craigslist.
Wow.
Including Song Sung Blue. It was a random ad. I think it was like 3 sentences. Had no idea really what it was about. I was just responding to anything that seemed feature length. I had made about 5 at that point. Greg Coase, who was with At Radical Media as a director, as a commercial director at that time, got on the phone with him, spoke 2 or 3 times, and then we ended up meeting at a truck stop off 95, where he had all the mini DV tapes, all the hard drives of stuff he'd already digitized, and I think maybe even a Mac, even though I didn't need it. He just had everything, and he had tried to make it into a film 2 or 3 times. I think he was on the verge of giving up, actually. I think I was kind of his last foray into like, can I make this into anything before I just accept my losses and put it to bed?
And it's kind of ironic because the editor is pretty much the biggest job on a documentary like this.
You said it, not me. I always feel like it's hard for an editor to say that themselves. But yeah, I mean, when people ask, they're like, well, we're sort of like the screenwriter, like he just gave it all to me and said, let's keep talking. And it was about a year and maybe a year and a half, maybe a year and 3 months or something of me in my little music studio garage that I'd built at my mom's house, editing away during the birth of my first son. I still have actually the whole wall of 3x5 index cards where I just logged, think about 1,000 hours of footage.
Wow.
And just tried to figure out what was there.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the son, because I know in the movie the son shot some stuff too. I don't know if any of that was from the son.
It's not. That's one glorification that the movie does that wasn't. So Lightning just always filmed himself.
Now, it's interesting because you said you decide the first and the last shot. And one of my notes was the very first shot is nothing but him in his baggy, tidy white. Well, they weren't tidy whities. They were baggy whities. That was kind of an interesting first shot.
Yep. And it's funny that seeing that ultimately on Hugh Jackman in the movie too, because at the time that was a big debate with Greg and I, the director, like, do we want to show something like this? I pushed hard for it because I was like, how much more of a gift do you get in one shot to learn everything you need to know about a character's personality? Like, screenwriters dream of being able to write a character where they can reveal everything you need to know about him in one moment.
Right.
And we had it in a documentary for real. And so to me, it was a no-brainer to always use it, but it was always this like, I don't know, it feels kind of inappropriate. It's a little corny, whatever. But that was kind of Lightning. He was a little inappropriate, a little corny, and all that came with his personality. Yeah, it's amazing to see it actually come through in the final narrative film, too.
Did you actually get to ever meet him?
I've met Thunder many times. I was just with her a couple weeks ago at the premiere. Lightning, unfortunately, my first time going to Milwaukee and shooting anything was at his funeral.
Oh, okay.
So that shot in the movie of the main wide shot in his funeral is me shooting that. We thought we were getting close to the end of the story that we were going to tell, and then everything that happened with him happened very suddenly. And he didn't even have a film crew or anyone ready. That's why I just hopped on a plane and got there because he wasn't going to be able to get anyone else to help him do this funeral that came about so quick.
Now, you did mention that some of the stuff is glorified, and I made notes of the things that were in both. And then I want you to tell me some of the stuff that was not or that was changed. The biker bar scene was in there, the Pearl Jams. Eddie Vedder was even wearing the Cramps t-shirt.
Yeah.
Obviously, she loses her leg. He has heart issues. His manager was also his dentist, gave him that tooth.
Mm-hmm.
The car hitting the house a second time. The daughter adopting her baby out. And then Asian Moon, the place where they played there for a while. So all those things were in both, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like some of the way that it glosses over some of it for the fact that it needs to be a 90-minute film. Or I guess it was like a 2-hour film.
Sure, yeah. So what did they get wrong?
What did they get wrong? I had always wondered how you would turn this documentary into a Hollywood type of film because you can't.
Right,
I'm sure you felt a little different watching the documentary than you did watching the film.
right.
It's not necessarily as like hopeful and one man against the world determined, it's got
Sure,
like
yeah. It's much more about the love story in the movie.
yeah, and the determination to succeed and all that kind of stuff. And in real life, they probably made more sacrifices to achieve that than a lot of people might say was good, like in parenting and paying
Right.
their bills and their health and
Yeah.
things like that. The relationship amongst the family wasn't necessarily as cordial and loving as
Right.
the Hugh movie makes it out to be. Some of the kids and stuff weren't even involved with the story at all, like the Hollywood movie tries to portray. I think it was all okay changes because I don't think it would have been a palatable movie otherwise.
Otherwise, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if you're gonna make the Hollywood version, this is what you have to do.
There you
And
go. So you got to go to the premiere.
yeah, the premiere, they did it in this theater in Milwaukee. It was the same theater that they premiered the documentary at the time. Thunder was there and she performed. Actually, I hadn't
Oh,
seen her
great.
perform in 15 years or something. And I got to meet Hugh, which was pretty fun. I didn't realize it was going to be as big of a red carpet as it was. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of like an intimate with the filmmakers, family, and friends type of screening.
Right.
That's how it was told to me. But it turned into be like a full-on like Hollywood red carpet just in Milwaukee. So like when Hugh showed up, there was just press all over him and people fawning over him and all the things of a typical whatever. So I just like, I'm not one for being like starstruck or anything like that, but I did want to like, meet the guy who thought it was worth taking the hard work I did and putting it on the big screen.
Sure.
But I just kind of figured it wasn't going to happen because he was being so bombarded. So I went and sat down for the screening. And when it was about 5 minutes before the film was going to start, I just figured I'd get up to use the restroom one more time. And when I did, Hugh was walking by with kind of an entourage, still bugging him, but it was time for him to go sit down. And I just it was like the kid in the Christmas Story getting kicked down the chute, telling Santa he wanted the Red Ryder gun. As Hugh walked by, I was just like, "Hey, Hugh, I'm Nick Kleczewski, the editor of the original documentary." And like as fast as I could blurt it out, and he was like 5 paces ahead of me, and he just like stopped in his tracks, turned around, and walked back over to me, and was so awesome. Like him hearing that, he had all these questions and wanted to like ask me what it was like, and what we got right, what we got wrong. I hadn't seen the film yet, so I wasn't able to answer half the questions, but he was just like very engaged and very enthused, and he is all the great things that people say about him for sure. And I got to meet Craig, the director, and he was even more enthused to talk because he really wanted to know what I thought about and wanted to meet afterwards to hear, what I thought about the transition and whatnot. But everyone involved just seemed like they were just genuinely moved by the original movie. Craig saw it on the festival circuit that we took it on and had a relationship with Hugh, and they had decided 10 some years ago they wanted to make this film together.
Wow.
They just weren't sure when the time was right. Craig wrote the script adaptation himself, sent it to Hugh, and basically they just sat and waited till Hugh's schedule allowed for it.
And what do you think of the movie?
It was difficult for me to get through the first time, but I think that's mostly because I lived with it really intensely. I mean, I'm sure any editor can relate to this, but when you're like knee deep in someone's personal life like that, and this was 1,000 hours of footage,
Yeah.
of their life over 20 years, that I had gone through all of it and dreamt about like what to do with it, and had, nightmares about what if I get it wrong, and emotional stuff because the movie is so emotional. I live with it. So I think in a way there was like no way a sub 2 hour translation of that was ever going to like do it
Right.
totally justice in my
Right.
mind. But I thought it was shot beautifully, like
Yeah.
unbelievably beautifully, and the performances not surprising or amazing. I mean, Kate Hudson seems like she's
She,
going to maybe clean up the awards with it this
yeah,
year.
yeah, she was quite a revelation in that, wasn't she? And she, of course, now she's got an album out. She's a singer. Nobody even really knew that, so that was
Oh
cool.
yeah, well she's fantastic in it. And I think Hugh, everyone just expects Hugh to be amazing. So he is
Yeah,
amazing, but you
yeah,
kind of
right, right,
expect it. So all the things put into it are incredible. It just, it's just difficult for me to like see the changes that were necessary to make it, a more popular, palatable
right, right.
film.
Going back to the documentary, you said there were some issues with the festival circuit.
Oh yeah, so that's you were asking earlier about some things that were much different in the film. They never meet Neil Diamond, and Neil Diamond's not aware of them. He is now, and he's met Thunder
Right.
multiple times.
Oh, cool.
But at the time, he had no idea who they were. And so when we had finished the film, we had asked for festival rights to the music. We just didn't hear anything. I think it was Sony or whoever it was that represents his stuff. And it's the night of the first screening. I think it's the night of the first screening, or maybe it was the day before. Greg gets a cease and desist letter
Oh,
that doesn't say anything about it being from Neil or anything like that, but it's from, the record label. And so that sucked. I had brought my
yeah,
whole family out to Park City. I mean, this was like, the biggest deal of our lives,
yeah.
that we were so excited in freaking the middle of Sundance, ready to show it to the world night before, whatever, totally told, nope, can't happen, go home. And so Greg, who's just a super connected director in his own right, who had already connected with Eddie Vedder because of that footage of them playing with Pearl Jam, and he had totally gotten permission from them, easy peasy, no problem. And because they were so gracious and easy, he called them as like a Hail Mary, like, "Hey man, we're sitting here dead in the water. I don't really know what to do." And basically, it was Eddie was like, "Let me call you back."
Oh,
And I think within 12 hours, I don't even think it was 24 hours. It was before the scheduled, so we totally missed our first screening. There, you get two. Before our second screening, we were all at a bar. I think we were just going to celebrate anyway, like try to like make something good out of the terrible news that had happened. And he gets a call, Greg, from Eddie, and he's like, "I got Neil to watch it." And he cried and he loved it. And he said, "You can have whatever you want,"
oh,
basically.
cool. Great.
And with just a verbal yes, like nothing reversed from the label legally or anything like that, we just ran the screening. And it still went on to win, the best documentary and the audience award, which is the first time I guess a film had ever done that there,
Oh, great.
especially for it only being the one screening. I guess with Neil, the rest is history because he supported it all the way. He ultimately did come to Milwaukee and meet Thunder. But yeah, it was rough.
Obviously, I've looked at the website and there's a lot of Audi footage. Do you drive an Audi?
I do not. I do not.
Oh, okay. As Stacy mentioned, you've been all over the world with Audi.
The gig sort of started out 10 years ago as helping Audi. They wanted someone to help them get a little bit more into the social game of having content and things. They were kind of stuck in a world of just making 30-second commercials, and they were really, as a progressive advertising brand, wanting to like break into content and brand films and things. And so that's kind of where it started, was making little documentary pieces about like the making of their cars and meeting with the German engineers and designers and trying to get a little bit more of the ethos into the understanding of like why Audis look the way they do and the history and everything else. The rest of my career just snowballed. Everything from being invited to kind of help them on this little bit of content game to today, I basically, when they let me, oversee everything they do in production, TV spots on down. The great thing about car commercials is it's one of the last bastions of still kind of high-end commercial production. So whenever I get to do that stuff, it kind of supersedes most of the other things I get to do because it's one of the worlds you can still make big and beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, and they're of course big and beautiful spots too. So, what's next? You got another movie in mind, or are you just going to do commercials at this point and documentaries?
Everyone's got a movie in them somewhere. I don't think any of us got into this business wanting to do anything else but make movies. That's what we all dreamt about as kids and why we got
Right.
into it to some degree. Almost none of us get to do it. and I've never gotten to make a narrative from the ground up type of film. So I'm not a writer. So that's always been my biggest Achilles heel is I don't have that idea in my back pocket. If I have any skills at all, which is jury's still out on that one. If I have any at all, it's collaborating with other people and taking other people's ideas and their abilities and hopefully getting the best out of them.
Well, one thing I always like to ask is when you're not working on some of these commercials or whatever, what do you like to watch? What are you watching right now? Streaming, TV, movies?
I mean, I was like hardcore 6 Feet Under fan when 6 Feet Under came out.
Great show. Watched every episode.
HBO.
Yep.
And I feel like that show sort of deserves to be like the grandfather of this type of storytelling in a way. I can't think of too many things before it that did the like 12-hour plus format of what now is the streaming. That was weekly back at the time, but it was then what we're watching now, I'm a sucker. I mean, I was a sucker for Stranger Things. I'm sure that's an easy show to, poo-poo or whatever, but
yeah.
I thought they had an amazing plan that they stuck to all the way to the end and did a great job. And obviously the nostalgia and stuff. I'm 45 years old. It was written for me. Like I am that kid's age now.
Sadly, they were about that age when they shot the last episode.
I know.
I mean, Millie Bobby Brown, they already had a baby at that point.
The one older brother guy is like 33.
Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous, but whatever.
For sure.
Well, Nick, this has been fascinating. It's great to finally meet you. I can't believe we've both been in this town all this time doing this business and never met, but I'm glad I finally got to.
All right, man. Thank you.
That was Nick Kleczewski, the Richmonder who edited the documentary Song Sung Blue about the Neil Diamond tribute duo Thunder and Lightning that was the inspiration for the current movie of the same name with Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson. I'll have a link to the documentary and Nick's website with some of his commercials on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
28 years later, The Bone Temple. This third sequel picks up where the last one ended. Dead Man's Wire, the latest from Gus Van Sant, is about a man who took a mortgage company president hostage. It stars Bill Skarsgård and Al Pacino. No Other Choice, from Korean master Park Chan-wook, best known for Old Man, comes this new film about a man who, after being unemployed for several years, decides to eliminate his competition by killing them. The Chronology of Water. Kristen Stewart wrote and directed this drama about a woman who attempts to escape from her abusive childhood with competitive swimming and more. All You Need Is Kill. This science fiction animation follows a soldier as he tries to escape an alien invasion. Night Patrol. Justin Long plays a cop who discovers a deadly secret in his task force, and it's being marketed as a supernatural vampire thriller. Charlie the Wonder Dog. This animated film is about a canine who develops superpowers after he's abducted by aliens.
TV and streaming.
The Rip on Netflix. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are back together as cops in this crime drama set in Miami. Ponies on Peacock. Emilia Clarke and Haley Lou Richardson play two wives who become CIA operatives after their husbands go missing. Agatha Christie's Seven Dials on Netflix. This mystery takes place at a country home after a party prank goes wrong. Hijack on Apple. Idris Elba returns after talking his way through a plane hijacking last season, now finds himself in a hostage situation in Berlin. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms on HBO. This series is based on George R.R. Martin's Tales of Dunk and Egg. Did you know there's a company in town that owns and operates 13 TV stations? Next week, I'll be talking with brand manager Ward Howarth. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sister, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.